Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Game Pass Grab Bag, your weekly podcast reviewing games from the Game Pass collection, bringing you three unique perspectives from varying skill range. I am the leader of the Psychonauts this episode, Andrew. With me, the one who thought this game was about crazy knots, Keith.
Hello.
And our recruit in training, our special guest, my brother, Aaron.
Hello.
And before we begin, my brother here also does his own podcast. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Wow, starting off just right away with the plug. So I am the co-host of the Real Movie Talk podcast. So we talk every week, every Friday. We get new episodes. We just talk movies. So we talk reviews. We talk news. We talk trailers. We talk Shrek. We talk Nick Cage. We hit all the important beats that you need for your movie news. So, yeah, every Friday.
Yeah, so check them out. They also have really good Nicolas Cage episodes. They're really funny.
And a new one coming up.
I should have done this with Dave. But real quick,
I want to start a new podcast called The Fake Movie Talk.
Yeah, no, that would be a really good idea.
And
It'd probably
really,
be a huge hit.
It would really burn you guys.
Every week you copy their episode and just make fun of their episode.
It's a review of our episode. I like that.
But Aaron, real quick, describe yourself. Do you consider yourself a hardcore gamer, moderate gamer, noob?
I would say moderate. Games? I mean, you and I have obviously grown up on video games, but you were somebody that would far more explore games, where I would get hooked on one and play a lot of Call of Duty. Let's just say it as it is. It's Call of Duty. I played lots and lots and lots of Call of Duty, and that was kind of about it. So you'd explore more than I would. I'd say moderate.
Okay. But a little bit more than Keith?
I'd say a little bit more than Keith, yes.
Aaron is like me, but actually with skill. And I just am me. I'm like Liz, but I play a lot.
It depends. Sometimes I shock myself at how bad I am at something. Like aggressively bad. The other day I was playing Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and it was like a tutorial boss. I died to that tutorial boss like 9 times. I couldn't follow the basic instructions, and I was really embarrassing myself. No one was watching me, but I was like, how am I not getting this? Like, why am I getting insta-killed here? It was bad.
Sometimes that's the most embarrassing, is when nobody's even around to laugh at you with it.
Well, Andrew the other day watched me play Chivalry, and I was doing the tutorial there, and he's just getting so annoyed watching me not listen to the instructions.
You were getting annoyed. It was like swing your sword, and you're sitting there stabbing the guy.
I just refused to listen to the instructions. I said, I know how to do this, and I didn't. So I'm moderate, although I just describe myself as really bad, but I am moderate, I swear.
So, getting into the episode, this week we played Psychonauts by Double Fine Studios. Keith, you've played a Double Fine studio because we did a recording of one. You remember what it was?
Yes, sir. That would be Jack Black game, because I can't remember the name, but Jack Black
Brutal
game.
Legends. And did it feel very similar?
I don't think so overall. I mean, maybe the more that I think about it in terms of the large amount of just mini collectibles, and you just get tons of them all the time. I guess I can see that. But otherwise, as far as the fighting style and stuff, I thought it was overly different in the platforming and whatnot.
Yeah. Aaron, have you ever experienced a Double Fine game?
I don't think I've played Brutal Legend. Did they make Monkey Island?
They did.
Okay, then I remember Monkey Island, and I remember it being the funniest game I had ever played before. And that was 90s, I think.
Yeah.
When I played that. I'm trying to think if I've played anything else from Double Fine Studios. I'm aware of the games they've made, but I just don't think... Again, I haven't really explored a whole lot, so...
What else have they made?
They didn't fully make Monkey Island, but I know some of the people left and did it.
Yeah.
Originally it was done by Lucas.
Day of the Tentacle was one game that they made. Grim Fandango was another game that they've made. So it was a lot of point-and-click adventures. And didn't they have a recent one that was a point-and-click adventure? They did it in 2 halves. It was right before Microsoft bought them.
Yeah, I had Liz play that game, and she absolutely loved it. It was
I've heard people say it was awesome. I forget the name.
It was really good. Oh my gosh.
I just remember they released the first half, and I was like, maybe someday I'll play that when they release the whole thing. And
oh my gosh.
I still haven't played it.
Don't you worry, guys. Google is at my fingertips.
Yeah, Google that jank. So it was right before Microsoft purchased them. So
Broken Age.
Broken Age. Yeah, that's it. So like I'm aware that they made a bunch of games. I really have not played them.
Double Fine's one of my favorite studios. They're really good. But yes, so Psychonauts. This is an original Xbox game. It's a 3D platformer, very kind of old school. But even though it's an original Xbox game, I think this, for me personally, I think this game holds up very well. It originally released in 2006, and you are playing a young cadet named Raz, who is going to this camp for psychic warriors. And you are essentially training to join this organization of Psychonauts, which is eventually, they're kind of like superheroes that kind of go around and fight supernatural forces throughout the world. So you go to this camp and things are not as they appear to be, so you are trying to unravel the mystery behind it. So going around, Aaron, since you're the guest, I'll have you go first. Was this a game or a pass for you?
I mean, it's a game. I don't know if it's necessarily one that I fell in love with. Initially, when I first started playing it, I was like, man, this game shows its age. But the more I dove into it, the more I was like, you know what, actually, this really kind of holds up.
Yeah.
It's really hard because we obviously own the original Xbox.
Yep.
And it's hard for me to go back to 2006 in my mind and remember what video games looked like back then.
I know. It catches you off guard because I remember being as a kid like, oh, the graphics were amazing.
Yeah. And obviously those show age. And it's not even just about the graphics. But what is really, I think, unique and special about this game, voice acting.
Yeah.
Which, how good was voice acting back in 2006? Probably okay in most games, but not great. And then I would say this falls into the category of great. And then the other thing that sticks out to me is the inventiveness of each level.
Yeah.
Like, everything was unique and different, and the game constantly felt like it was trying to up the ante on, this is the new clever idea that we have. This is the next clever idea that we have. And, I'm trying to think, in 2006, how often were games doing stuff like that? Nowadays you might run into it, but back then I don't think you did.
Yeah.
So then the further you get into it, it's not just a platformer. It's a whole lot of everything. The writing's solid, but I think that's a Double Fine thing. From my understanding, their writing is always really, really strong. All that to say, it is a game.
Nice. I mean, I pretty much in the same boat as Aaron here. I don't think it's like a must game. Like, oh my goodness, you've got to download this game. You've got to play it. However, if it's something that you've been interested in, it is worth the time. It's a lot of fun. It, like Aaron was saying, it holds up very well. I mean, sure, you look at it and you go, okay, this isn't remastered. This is an Xbox game. It's old, but it plays so well, and it does things that I feel like you don't really even see in games today. So I definitely think it's a very good game, and so I will call it a game.
So for me, I'm going to go a bit farther, and I think this is a must game. So I say it's a must game too, because another reason we're covering this is because since E3 just happened, they did finally give the release date for Psychonauts 2, which is coming out very soon. And I remember when I first played this was one of my favorite original Xbox games. I remember when I first played this, I loved it. I loved the humor. I loved the art style, everything about it. I remember getting majority of the collectibles back then. And this was before achievements. So this was just for the love of collecting things. And replaying it now, I was like, oh, now I remember why I love this game. And I think it holds up very well. The graphics, some things show its age. I think the graphics a little bit, but most importantly, the controls, which we'll get into a little bit later. But yeah, for me, I think this is a must game. This is something you should really experience. But starting off, as I did a little bit of synopsis of the story, you play as a young cadet Raz who runs away from his family, who you are a family of circus folk, and your family hates psychics. You're actually a family of like gypsies, and you actually have a gypsy curse that everyone in your family is going to die from water. And so this is why your family hates psychics, because it was a psychic that ended up applying this curse to your family. So as a young kid, a random stranger gave you a brochure for this camp. And Raz, of course, goes off to this camp, and something's not quite right because some of the kids start losing their brains. I gotta ask you guys, so what did you think of the story?
Well, I'm going to start right off, and I mean, you don't really kind of find out about the letter. Well, at least you don't find out like the little cutscene where it shows you getting the letter and everything. Very Harry Potter-esque. You get this mystery letter discovered from a magical distant place and calling you to come learn about your magical skills that you have. So yeah, it's like Harry Potter at its core.
That's true. I actually, with the core concept of this game, do you think Christopher Nolan got the idea of Inception from this game?
No.
You're essentially going inside people's minds, fixing it, kind of planting ideas in their minds.
I think you can state that as a fact. Yes.
Christopher Nolan definitely played this game.
I do like that you said Harry Potter, though, because it's just dang Harry Potter. Just minus the owls.
Yeah.
Even with the teachers, the different teachers, and then they're teaching you new skills. This is Harry Potter.
Dang, that actually is a good point.
It is.
It's 100%. Not purgatory, it's Harry Potter.
Yeah. It's Harry Potter in purgatory is what it is.
Initially, I did not like the story because it just throws you in it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's very abrupt.
I mean, it was kind of like jarring because all of a sudden it's just there.
Yeah.
Like,
welcome to camp. Here you are.
Even when they introduced Rasputin or Raz, I mean, he just
literally emphasized Rasputin.
I mean, that's his name. That's his name. I'm just saying his name. There's nothing weird about that.
Rasputin.
He literally just like shows up.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, video game.
Oh, and it's you. You're this person.
And so those games always kind of frustrate me where like I am just immediately in it. And I don't like, okay, like
no backstory. Yeah, it's
nothing.
Really just
nothing.
Oh, there you go.
You find out obviously as you're playing it evolves and it starts to open all that stuff up and it gets better. But initially I was like, oof. And then in my head I'm thinking, was this how all games were in 2006? Did they just happen?
They weren't as handholdy.
So I was a little bit concerned that I was like, oh, this is not going to be a good start here. But yeah, it gets better.
So I agree, Aaron. The game really does just kind of like throw you in. But overall, I like the story because you mentioned it a little bit before. This game is all about going inside people's minds. And so like that's the actual play world you do. So think like, Super Mario 64, you went through the paintings and you went to those different worlds. This is the way this game does this. Yeah, you put a door on someone's head and you enter their mind. And I loved that concept. And it really opens the door to just, and you like how I did there? To just like really interesting areas. And yeah, the story is very basic. Your family's coming to pick you up. You are basically trying to become a psychonaut and complete the camp within 2 days. But then it kind of turns into this whole like, not murder mystery because nobody's murdered, but kids are losing their minds. And so it's just this whole kind of mystery. And the voice acting really drives the story. I loved the voice acting in this game. So for me, I thought the story was fantastic.
Well, you know me. I love me some Invader Zim. And so like having him come back again, I don't know the guy's name. I just know Invader Zim is like starting out with his voice acting alone, I think is great. And I think especially there's something special about someone who is like purely a voice actor. Like you have a game like Jack Black or Terry Crews, and so you're picturing them. Like, I don't know what this guy looks like. I just know his voice. And I always know him as just a voice. So when he pops up, like, he just always seems to do a good job, I guess. But even all the other voice acting and, like, the way the story is told, all the dialogue is interesting. It's all unique. It's not one of those games where you constantly just hear someone yelling the same thing over and over again. So like I just liked how they did that. And yeah, I actually paid attention to the story and like what was going on, because if you add some comedy to it, you're always going to hook me just a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I think that hits really well with this game is the comedy, because it's not fully in your face all the time. It is a lot of simple dialogue stuff. And if you're not paying attention and listening and like the voice acting wasn't as good as it was, a lot of this comedy would not hit. But I think it does. And there's a good amount of moments in this that really had me chuckling good.
And I don't think I laughed a whole lot. Like there might have been a couple moments that were like high in levity, but I don't think I necessarily thought it was funny. I know you described this game as a lot funnier than I would.
Granted, I played this when I was a lot younger, and I do remember when I played this younger, I thought it was super funny. But
I think it's, and again, I think this goes under something that Double Fine Studios is known for, which is kind of a lighthearted. And this is why I thought of Monkey Island, because Monkey Island, many years ago when I did play Monkey Island, it was the funniest game I had ever played. So, I know that's kind of their standard. For me, it was funny enough, but I wouldn't say I was out here, slapping my knees laughing.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't keeled over in laughter. It wasn't that type of comedy, but it was definitely, it was there enough. And I think, like Andrew was saying, the fact that it was just subtle enough, I think that's why I liked it, because I like that sort of subtle, not just like, here's a fart. It was more to it, and you kind of had to. I don't even.
Was there a single fart joke?
I don't think so. I mean, none that stuck out to me. But that's what I'm saying. Is it's not like
jokes. I think.
I'm not
some missed opportunities.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make it sound like ooh, it's this big smart comedy, but it.
Yeah, they did do a brain fart.
Yeah, that would have been a good one. See,
missed opportunity.
See, I'll take a fart joke. Don't get me wrong, but yeah.
Oh, I know you, Keith.
Do it good. And I liked the way that they put the comedy into it, because there are certain points in the game where it's, again, not overly serious, but you're like, wow, there's actually some like emotion behind some of the storytelling, like the theater.
Oh yeah,
like it's a sad little story.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite collectibles. Inside everyone's minds, you have figments of imagination, you have cobwebs, emotional baggage, and then the vaults, which are like hidden memories that people really suppress. In the vaults, some of them were really good. Like, yeah, some of them talk about like suicide. A lot of them talk about just like personal like faults that people deal with. I loved finding the vaults.
Yeah, but
they're like simple, just black and white slideshows with no audio, but they told a great story.
But not even that. Like, I'm just talking about even like the whole, when you go into the actress's mind, like it's this whole sad story about how she basically gets abandoned by her mother because her mother goes off and runs off with her boyfriend because all she cares about is herself, and she just gets abandoned there. But she somehow like fights through it and becomes successful. So you have like this half and half, like really dark but like really happy story because she's successful, but she was abandoned and nobody loved her. And so I don't know, they made it like lighthearted, but there's also some real like emotional things happening.
I was not a big fan of there's a little bit, some of that stuff is buried, but I don't know, I feel a little bit different about the collectibles kind of giving you some insight. I agree the vault stuff was pretty decent, but can somebody explain to me what the baggages do?
Absolutely nothing.
I was disappointed with the baggages too. I thought the baggages would also kind of tell more about like their
That's what I
moments.
thought was going to happen.
Or the cobwebs all too, happens, even.
Yeah, well, all the baggages do. If you collect all the baggages, you get concept art. Usually about that level.
Okay, so it wasn't about.
That's a very old game thing. Instead of giving you achievements, they give you concept art, which was okay, but not worth hunting for.
Because I don't necessarily want to jump on the collectibles, but I've got issues with the collectibles. I got some gripes there.
All right, well, why don't you tell us about those gripes?
This is too many. Because everything's a collectible. There's just too many. All right, so let's break this down a little bit. You got arrowheads to collect.
Which is currency.
Yeah, so you got the cards to collect.
Which leveled you up.
You got the centers of the cards that you need to combine to raise your psi level.
Yeah.
You've got tags. You've got baggages. You've got figments of imaginations.
Which those level you up.
Okay, you've got cobwebs. Which
those level you up.
All right, so I've just listed 7. You could probably make an argument. You could also add health and ammo.
Yeah.
As additional things that you could be collecting as well. There's too many collectibles.
There's
too many collectibles.
I don't consider currency a collectible. And same with, again, health.
Fine.
But I
no.
Pickups. I guess if we're talking not collectibles, pickups.
You need to get the cobweb gun.
Yes.
And so you need to buy that. So I guess I would actually.
They obsessively remind you to buy that gun.
Yeah, that took me
which you can't buy until much further down the road anyway. But yeah, there's too many dang collectibles. Too many dang collectibles. And so many of them just do the same thing, which is raise your psi level. That's my other issue. It's like, well, just give me one thing to collect. I don't need like 4 things to raise my level. I just need one of those things to do that.
Well, and on that point too, is like when you're talking about the figments, it'll be like, there's 185 of them in this area. And so even if you do try to go collect them, you're like, I'm going to try and do this because, you go just take a little bit of extra attention as you go through it. And then you get through the whole thing and you have 184 out of 185. And you're like, I'm not going to do this, but I want to out of spite. I think I did it on one. And I spent
I did not.
I spent like 10 minutes trying to find it. And I was like, no, I'm done. This is stupid. All it's going to do is get me not even a full level. Carry on.
That's the problem. The problem is like the payout was nothing.
Well, because
it's really nothing.
You can get up to a level 100, which is just
Yeah, but who cares?
I mean, you get better skills, or your skills improve, I guess. But I'm not saying it's worth it to increase to 100.
I never felt like I needed my skills to be that much more improved. I felt like they were just leveling along.
I thought they were just fine too.
Yeah.
So I never felt like, well, if I do this, this could make this so much easier for me. It just felt like, and maybe it was the sign of the times, I guess, but I can't think of any game that had that many different types of collectibles. Like, even if you're playing a stinking Mario 64, you collect coins and stars.
Yeah.
The end.
Well,
that's end of collectibles.
And it could be a Double Fine thing again as well, because Brutal Legends, like we were talking about, there's like 3 or 4 different like main collectibles, if I remember.
Yeah.
And they're all the same way. It's like there's 65 of these statues in this area. There's 422 of this thing.
That's way too many of a thing.
They're like, no, let's cap it at 100.
It's not a collectible if just walking, I get 4 of them within 30 seconds.
I do agree with that.
That's not a collectible.
If you're throwing too much, it does kind of get a little annoying.
And they added nothing really, even like visually.
No.
It was just like, well, and I'm just saying, even from the effect of it, like if it's a figment of his imagination, like the first time you see it, it's like this big scary monster. It's like, don't worry, that's not going to hurt you. And that's how they introduce you to it. But everything else beyond that, it's like a robber on the top of a burglar on the top of a rooftop. And every single rooftop has it. So again, it's not really all that special.
Yeah.
So I think it's funny when we first started playing this, Keith goes, wait, is there not achievements? I'm like, no, this is original Xbox game, didn't have achievements then. So Keith goes, good. That means I don't have to get all the collectibles. But then 2 days later, he messages me like, yeah, I'm only like 3 levels in. I've been trying to get all the collectibles, but I'm a really high level. And so,
for no game.
Yeah, but Keith sees collectibles, and he is excited.
I got some neat stuff.
So I do agree. Yeah, the collectibles were a bit much. But overall, like, what did you guys actually think of the platforming? Because for me, I was actually really surprised how solid it is. Like, when you play some older platformers, normally the biggest issue is the camera. And there was some areas I had some issues with the camera. But overall, I thought the platform was really solid. Because, surprisingly, too, for this being a 2006 game, your character actually will grab on ledges, which I feel like is such a common feature now, but not so much back then. And so, like, even if you slightly miss your platform, your character will still grab it, and you have kind of like a safety net. But yeah, I thought the gameplay actually held up really well.
Yeah, I can't say I'm a massive fan of platformers. I kind of tolerate them, but I tend to be more frustrated by what feels like a dumb miss when you're trying to jump on something. But I would say that in general, I agree. The grabbing onto a ledge, like, why did that not exist in platformers? Like, it should have just been a standard. You know where it really surprised me, where I was really intrigued by the whole platforming, is once you learn levitation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's when the game really kind of opens up.
Yeah, when you got levitation, and that's what I was saying at the beginning of all of this, where the game kept evolving and adding in unique and different things. And in 2006, I just don't remember games being like this. That was one of those moments that really stuck out to me, because as you're learning platforming using levitation, I was shocked at how nice that felt. Like how momentum felt.
Yeah.
It felt so natural. It felt
especially,
so smooth.
Yeah, if you're on your elevation too, if you're on a hill, how quickly you'll slide down it,
like,
or like
yeah.
an edge. Yeah.
It's wild to think that at that time, like, Halo was a hot game, and the Warthog would feel worse to drive than it would be to use this levitation ball in Psychonauts. So, yeah, there were things that I was really impressed with, and that's one of those things where the platforming just felt natural. It felt like a good extension of it, and it works.
I do think the levitation is funny, because there's nothing really, you don't levitate.
No,
but I mean,
you go fast.
Yeah, I don't disagree with your sentiments on it, like really opening up the game and making it a lot more interesting. But at the same time, I was like, this isn't levitation at all. It's moving fast, it's jumping higher, and it's floating. That's none of those things.
Oh, you mean floating like levitation?
No, like parachute. And
I just wanted to
you just float
be
down.
Clear that floating is levitation. Keith.
Yeah, I mean, like you slowly drift to the ground. You don't fall. You float.
I'll allow it.
Yeah, but that's where I think it's really cool, and like the changing biomes of like everyone's mind and how they are. Like they overall did a really good good job shaking them up, and like the different aspects of gameplay. Like there's the one I was thinking of in particular that when I was playing, I was like, this just seems like a really cool concept. Was the underwater one where you're fighting the boss, and he's just pushing this, or she
Air
is
bubble.
just pushing along this little underwater bubble, and you have to like follow along and platform and not get caught outside of the bubble or you die. So I'm sure other games have done it, but it was such like a change of pace of the game, I guess. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I thought the change of pace of the game overall was, really impressive. Yeah, you're still kind of doing the same thing. You know, you're in a new world, trying to get to the end of it, so on and so forth. But yeah, everything was just so unique and diverse that it really just kept the game feeling fresh. I do got to ask, though, did you guys have a favorite or a least favorite? I know I had one that I really hated, and I'm curious if you guys felt the same way.
The one I didn't like, but not even because it was that difficult, it was just long. I felt like was that little suburb area where you have to get like the different agent items to blend in with them.
That is the one I hated.
I
hated that one. It was so boring.
Yeah, it was kind of a cool concept as far as like, hey, you gotta go, get these different things, blend in, sneak around. This is how you do it. But at the same token, it was so long and boring, and like there wasn't a lot of excitement. You're not really fighting anything. You're just running and collecting. And that was the one I got 164 out of 165 figments on. I was like, oh, stupid collectibles.
Yeah, because what I hated so much about that one is you're supposed to go in the buildings, but it doesn't tell you that. I ended up actually falling in front of a house, and it made me go into the building, and I'm like, oh my gosh, had to be going to every single house to look for items. And I think that is one thing where this game really shows its age. It doesn't fully explain some things. So I wanted to ask you guys, another segment we usually do, what did you guys YouTube with this game?
Not a ton of things. And it was like really dumb things. For example, on that suburb level, after you get one of the agent things, like you go all the way to the end, you get sucked underground by this like demon thing, I guess. I don't know. I don't really know what a demon worm.
It didn't explain it at all. That thing just magically appeared and started attacking you. I don't know what it was.
It kind of does, I think, because if I remember, whose mind was it?
It was a security guard.
But it was something about a bunch of children dying. And like you go to this weird underground area and she's like, no, don't go down there. It's the teacher down by the lake. But there's like all these like dead kids or something, and you go down underground and there's this cage, and those little things are walking around, and you just hear like little kids like, why did you let us die? It's kind of creepy, actually.
Nightmare fuel.
Yeah, I do not remember this moment.
Yeah, it's in there. It's kind of creepy, but I still don't necessarily know what they are, other than just, again, maybe like demons of their mind. But yeah, I ended up YouTubing it because I kept fighting it and it keeps getting its health back. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I just have to throw one of these. It like explodes out these little exploding balls. And I was like, I think I have to throw one at it. But I like couldn't get the shot lined up, and it gives you like 5 seconds to do it. So I was just like, I got to look this up and make sure I'm right. And then I was. But yeah, it was like dumb stuff like that I looked up.
I mean, I talked to you that I had to YouTube pretty early because I did not realize there was like another menu to bring up for for an item.
Your backpack.
Yeah, so like I don't know if I don't read tutorials, so it could have very well been given to me in a tutorial.
No, I didn't see it. I actually hit it by accident.
So there is a point where you have to put a button to open a door. Like you have to give it a button, and I'm like, where is this button? So I started just exploring and just going around. But if I look on the map, it clearly says I need to be in that location. So finally, I'm like, all right, I'm YouTubing this thing, and he didn't even explain it. He just showed. He pulled up a menu, and I'm like, what is that menu? Nobody showed me this menu, so I figured it out. I just started hitting all these buttons until I had this menu get brought up. Yeah, there are definitely some moments in here it doesn't tell you what's going on. It doesn't really hold your hand. But in general, you can figure this stuff out. If you've been playing video games, you can kind of figure this out. I just didn't know this menu existed. So that's the only thing that got me.
Yeah, for me, I'm with Keith. I ended up YouTubing the security guard mind, and it wasn't even for the boss. I figured that out right away. When he threw bombs, I was like, oh, I just got to probably use telekinesis and throw it at the guy. No, for me, with the security boss, or the security guard's mind, you had to have certain items in order to access areas. And as I said, you have to go through every single house, open every car, just to find an item to use as a disguise. And I just went, I don't have the time for this. I got to play through this game. I'm just going to YouTube this area. And yeah, I instantly found a walkthrough. It just kind of got me right through it. Well, I just did not like the level. I thought the level was so slow.
I mean, that's actually the same one I YouTubed, because it was that little thing that pulls you underground that I looked up that fight for. But and I actually was looking at parts of that, because the thing is you really didn't need to go into those houses except for maybe like 2 items, I think. Otherwise, it's like you walk to the end of the level, which takes forever. I guess unless you're not looking for like trying to collect things, but you just walk to the end of the level, they give you an item, and then you walk back, and then you do have to go into one of the houses, I believe, with that item, and then you can go underground and go on to the next level. But yeah, that was the one you were talking about last night. Okay. And yeah, that one, I didn't hate that level as a whole, other than I just thought it was really boring.
The other thing I wanted to bring up, where I think this game really shows its age, and that is the controls. So you end up getting quite a bit of different skills, and I think a lot of the skills are very fun and useful. Unfortunately, so this is the original Xbox, so before they had left and right bumper, it was black and white. And then, so you have black and white.
The old Duke controller.
Yeah. You have black and white, and the right trigger is what you assign your abilities to. And you have to like swap through them quite a bit. I don't know about you guys, but that was my biggest complaint is the controller. It wasn't game breaking, like it didn't ruin the game for me, but for me it really showed its age.
Well, I made it easy on myself, and I just remembered that white is not right, so that I always knew that the white was the left bumper and the black one was the right bumper.
Wow. What a method. I just punched a lot, so I barely switched.
Well,
I shot a lot.
I was gonna say, but there's points where like it forces you to use those skills, and
yeah,
I think what got me the most on that is I wish that it was like, and I think more games do this now, where you have like 3 kind of subset of skills, and you can only lock in 1 of 3 skills to a certain button. So whatever skill you have is always going to be locked to that button. But sometimes I'd have it on my right trigger, sometimes I'd have it on my right bumper, and so like it just I would get confused because I never had my skills on the same button. That's one thing I didn't like, because I kind of got used to the black and white buttons. Like, jokes aside of my fun little reminder, like I got more or less used to that. I just didn't get used to my skills always being on a different button.
But I loved the abilities of this game. I think the combat was okay. And the boss, what did you guys think of the boss fights?
They were alright.
I loved it. I thought they were fine. I actually liked how quick they were. That was probably my favorite thing.
Yeah.
There's a good amount of them. They're just quick.
I think there's probably philosophy on like what are good boss fights. Obviously there's a whole genre of games and like the Dark Soul games, which are all about daunting, ridiculous boss fights. I don't think I've ever been a huge fan of boss fights, so I always kind of appreciate them being brief. Like I appreciate them being kind of just maybe slightly challenging. It'd be a small puzzle to solve, but it not go on for longer than it needs to go. I don't think I have any complaints on that front.
Yeah, see, I agree. Like, I don't want this like crazy Dark Souls type of boss. There's reasons I don't play games like that, so I don't want that in every single game. But I do like it where it's like, maybe it breaks up the boss fight into 3 different segments, and like you have to fight them a slightly different way. I don't really remember the game doing anything of that. So, but again, not going to really fault the 2006 game on not having that intricacy on a boss fight. But I thought they were fine. They were really just there to serve as having like an ending to an area, is what I felt like. Because otherwise, yeah, the combat it leaves a little bit to be desired. You kind of just run around and you just either smack or shoot everything, and you just fight some really generally a variation of a little guy in a suit with a big sensor stamp. So,
well, I know you had a hard issue with one of the bosses. Wasn't it the one in the theater?
The theater one. See, well, I kind of figured out the theater one. It was it almost, again, it doesn't really give you much explanation. But I think I only died maybe like a couple of times to him. Like, it wasn't like I had like a huge huge struggle. I guess you could say I did struggle with that one, that the little demon worm, because I Googled or I YouTubed it, but I also didn't really struggle because it only took like 5 shots to actually take it down, so it blows up its little, exploding balls, and then you hit it once with one of those and it's dead. So it's not like it was even difficult once I really figured out what I was doing.
Yeah, so I agree with you guys. I like just kind of a simple boss fight. Even if they're not too intricate, they at least have to have really good design. And I think this is one thing that the game really excels with, is its art style. Even though this game came out in 2006, its graphics does show a little bit in its environment, but I loved the art style of Psychonauts. To me, I'm assuming you guys probably got the same feel, but it felt very much like Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yep.
Just like...
Yeah, I can see that.
Kind of exaggerated. A lot of these people are actually very grotesque looking, but I loved the art style.
If you were to tell me this was inspired by Tim Burton, or it was created by Tim Burton, it would 100% make sense. To the degree of, there is a character in this that to me is a straight up ripoff of a character in The Nightmare Before Christmas. Can you even think of who it would be?
The scientist.
The scientist.
Oh, yeah.
The scientist is the guy that...
Well, the scientist in this one has like a shower cap. The scientist in
he has a metal cap.
Christmas is in a wheelchair.
He's in a wheelchair, but he's got the metal cap on his head.
Yeah.
They look exactly the same. Okay, but instead of a metal cap, he's got a shower cap. Other than that, it's the same stinking character model.
Well, yeah. And even like some of the characters, like the bully of the camp. I mean, he's like a zombie monster thing,
he kind of looks like
which is a whole other level of weird about this game that I don't get outside of, you could have told me it's a Tim Burton inspiration, if that, like, hey, everything's just a little bit weird in this world. But there was no real explanation why there's just like monsters and humans, and
I don't think you need one.
No, you don't need one, but it was just kind of weird. Like, it was like all Earth centered. They don't mention outer space, other than there's this one little girl that just happens to mention that she's an alien, and it's just like, hey, there's psychic events happening and we're here to prevent it. So I don't know, I'm not knocking it for it. It just feels like a weird type of thing that you have all this going on, and they just wanted to have these weird designs, I think. It
felt like, in a lot of ways, like this was a Nickelodeon show from the late 90s, early 2000s.
Oh, yeah. I totally could have seen this as a kid show.
There are so many times you're having interactions with some of the other kids in the camp, and you're like, I could 100% have been watching a show just like this on Nickelodeon. So it has a feeling of its time, where it had that kind of feel. It had the Tim Burton feel. It had the Nickelodeon of the mid 2000s feel.
I will say I think they probably could have gotten away with it on a Nickelodeon in the late 90s, early 2000s, but like there was some weirdly not adult, like it wasn't graphic, but like the little boy who's peeping in on the girls bunk, and like there's just weird little things along the way through that. I'm like, this is not too kid friendly. But
the teacher that teaches you levitation,
she's like hitting on you hardcore.
Oh, she's straight up. There's problems there. That's a problem there.
That was very, very uncomfortable. She's like, "Ooh, you know how to flirt." I'm like, "He's 9.
Yeah.
You chill out,
is a child. You're a camp counselor."
Yeah, that was uncomfortable.
But I think the art style was really good, though, because I actually thought it worked really well. Because this wasn't a game that was like, oh, we're going to try to go realistic. Because when you play any sort of game from 2006 and they try to go realistic, it doesn't age well. Mm-hmm. But I think it aged well for this game, because as Keith said, this isn't a remaster. This is a straight port. And it also makes the characters very memorable. Which is great, because the voice acting is so good. And, like, I can distinctly remember, like, these characters. Even though I've played it so long ago, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember this secret agent guy. I remember the scientist. I remember, the goofy, dopey, like, best friend who makes squirrels explode. Like, because I remember the art style of this game, and I remember the voice acting. And I think just the voice acting and the sound effects of this game also just, I think, are really good. Well, there's some noises in this game that kind of annoy me a little bit. I will say.
Sound design. You lose me a little bit on that one. Like, the voice acting's good. I think graphically it looks good. The design and aesthetic of the game is all good. Like, I can agree with that. Sound, I don't know if I'm fully on board.
The sensors kind of annoyed me. They constantly keep going around saying ow, 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 ow.
Yeah.
If you get like too many on the screen, it's kind of like, all right, this is a bit much. I need to start killing you guys.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm fully on with that one.
They say like the death noise too. I don't know what that noise is, but the thing I was trying to imitate there.
I thought the death noise was fine because it like some games when they give you a death noise that like it makes you feel bad that he died. This one was just at least kind of lighthearted.
Keith's dying a lot. That's what he's trying to say. So he was just sick of hearing that sound.
I'm not even hiding it because, I've said this. I'm pretty sure on other platformer games we played. I have this tendency that if I start to die like maybe like 2 or 3 times at the same part, like on a platforming section in particular, I start to just be like, all right, I get this now. I know what to do. I just need to do it. And then I just start rushing everything. And then I just start doing things like running off the cliff, not even jumping, like missing entirely. And then I just get more frustrated. And then, yeah, I hear that sound like 10 times in 2 minutes. Like, F this noise. I hate everything.
But at least for me, like nothing was like overly exaggerated. Like I didn't like hear the sensor noises of them saying "ow" all the time. So yeah, some of the sound effects weren't great, but at least like it wasn't so repetitive that it just drove me insane. So I at least appreciate that. But yeah, I was like, I keep saying, I was impressed with the cast they got. I felt like everyone actually did a really good job with their characters.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not I felt for every character in the game, they were all memorable in some way. Like they were all unique, and you're like, oh yeah, like I don't know, they all had a different, distinct personality, which I thought was kind of neat. Which also, it was like they fit them to like, hey, this is a camp. You've got a bully, you've got the popular girl, you've got the weird kid.
Yeah, set up for Nickelodeon show.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, so with our next segment that we normally talk about, since this unfortunately is an original Xbox game, there is no achievements, but with the recent E3, they did finally give a release date of Psychonauts 2. And I gotta ask you guys, out of 1 out of 10 brains, how excited are you guys now for Psychonauts 2?
This is actually kind of tough. Just because, as far as it goes for Double Fine, as a studio, I imagine they've gone through a lot of changes over the years.
Yeah.
And they're really known for their point and click. I feel like there was like this brief period in original Xbox and some 360 where they did this kind of platform stuff with Brutal Legend.
I feel like their catalog's more platformers because they've done a ton of different little things.
Can you name one outside of these two?
Yeah, stacking.
That was them.
Yeah, it's a dog. It's like a third-person puzzle game where you play the Russian dolls.
Okay, all right.
I think they did Trenched.
I know I'm putting you on the spot there, so I'm kind of making this impossible.
Yeah, I know.
I personally get a little nervous when there's huge spans of time between sequels. I get a little bit nervous on that front. And obviously, I think they've got a lot riding on this. There's a lot of people I know will look at Psychonauts and say it's one of their all-time favorite games. And to me, it probably sets the bar up really, really high for this game. So yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I'll say I'm a solid 7 brains out of 10.
And it's not Trenched. Trenched was like its, I think, first name, but it was Iron Brigade. This is a 360 game. Really cool. So it was a third-person mech, but also a turret defense game. And there was no humor in it.
Man, this is
really
totally
cool.
different type of game.
It was during World War I, where you are these iron mechs, and yeah, you could either be like someone who just fights the aliens, or you could be like an engineer.
Man,
different type of style.
I thought I had an idea who the studio was.
No, Double Fine
everywhere.
This is why I love Double Fine. Double Fine is very open to ideas. They always have like anyone in the studio pitch ideas. They have a thing called crap, I can't remember. It's like something Fortnite. But they literally do like 2 weeks of just like massive brainstorming and just coming up with weird ideas. Another recent Game Pass game they came out with was Knights and Bikes. You play these little kids that go around, and I don't know the full story of it. I hated the trailer because the trailer was obnoxious.
That was Double Fine too?
Yeah, that was
I downloaded that game because I was like, oh, this looks like it could be kind of a neat game. I just never got to actually playing it, but I didn't realize that was them. And is it off Game Pass now? I think it left. I don't know if it's important to know or not, but it was on Game Pass, and I don't remember if it is now. But I mean, while you're looking that up, I guess I'll answer this question, and I'm sort of with Aaron in that it's weird for me. slightly for different reasons. One, I mean, partly, yes, I agree. When you go this length of time between two sequels, it's hard to stay excited. Now, for me, having just played Psychonauts for the first time in 2021, I can say, I can relate to having just played this, and so there is some excitement for me to really maybe play it. But at the same token, I don't know if it's an excitement or more of an interest. Like, I would like to see how they bring this game into 2021. I would like to see, what they do graphically, where they go with the story, because, like, do they play on the fact that it's been 15 years and, like, now the game is set far in the future? Like, all these types of different things. So I'm interested. I definitely want to play it, and I'm sure we'll probably end up doing an episode on it because that's just what we do. But I think I'll go with the same answer as Aaron. I'll give that 7 out of 10 brains.
So for me, I'm a solid 10. I'm very excited for Psychonauts 2. I remember when I first played this game, it ended, and I was like, I want to know more about this universe, because everything that we experience is just like in this campground. And I'm like, I want to see what this world is like. Like, I want to see your character go out and join, actually become a psychonaut and, like, go around the universe or the world or whatever and see these different adventures. Because I remember by the end of this game, I loved it. I was so excited. And so Psychonauts 2 was first announced, I do believe it's just a PlayStation exclusive, and I was so sad about that. And I remember this game was Psychonauts 2 wasn't going to be a Kickstarter game. There was another website, figs.com.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, where you become like an investor.
Yeah.
This was like one of the first games to kind of like launch that website. And so I was like, man, I kind of want to do that because I really want this game. But I was like, well, I'm not going to get it because I don't have a PlayStation. But then, of course, Microsoft bought Double Fine, and now it's going to be an Xbox exclusive, which makes me so excited. But yeah, I just remember back in 2006, I wanted a sequel. So when they finally announced it during that E3, I was so excited. I was actually debating about getting a PlayStation just to play it. So I'm a solid 10. I cannot wait. I want to see more of the adventures of these characters.
I will agree. I would be more interested to see this in, like, a more expanded world. Like, yeah, you become an official psychonaut. You're not just trying to solve this weird mystery of a summer camp. So I think there would be some cool, like, aspects to that. But yeah.
I mean, the E3 trailer recently showed some gameplay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't talk story. I hope it goes right back to the camp and you never get out.
So it is purgatory.
Yeah, I hope you're like all excited to get out of the camp, and then it's just like, no, never mind, you're back in the camp for a year or two.
You just have to become a camp counselor.
Yeah, and I hope they like double down on the amount of collectibles.
Oh yeah.
If I go more than like 5 steps without collecting something, I'm gonna be disappointed.
I mean, I didn't say it, but as you were saying that, it made me think, like, if I went more than 5 steps without collecting something, I was like, am I missing something? Is there something else?
Clearly, I'm missing something.
Yeah, I didn't go back and look.
No possible way.
So, getting into our final thoughts, Keith, why don't you go first?
Yeah. So I mean, I didn't really know what to think of this game. Andrew had talked it up in advance. I mean, you had big things to say about it, and it's one of those things that because I didn't have an original Xbox, it was only on there. The name was like familiar. Double Fine stuck out to me right away, obviously. And yeah, it starts out a little bit slow, and you're like this weird, like I don't know, you don't really know what's going on, and that kind of makes sense. But as I got more and more into the game, and like we were talking about, the way that it evolves, the way that even though it's not graphically the greatest game in the world, everything felt very unique, very different. Even like within the campground itself, when you went to different areas of the campground, whether it's the lake or the main lodge, like all these different things, everything felt just a little bit different, and I really appreciated that for what they did of its time. It was good, and the gameplay seemed to change well. It still always stuck to its core of being just a 3D platformer. So I think it's just a lot of fun, and I think once you have achievements, because at least if you're going to ask me to collect 165 things, start giving me some achievements for it. And even regardless of that, I think this game is prime for a remaster. I think like if you could really trim up the graphics, because the gameplay doesn't need to be touched, almost like a Destroy All Humans. Just polish
Fix the controller.
It up. Yeah, fix the controls, make it say right bumper, left bumper, polish everything up just a little bit more, and maybe slap in some achievements, even if it's just some really simple, like, hey, for beating each level. It doesn't have to be these crazy collectible things. I would love to see that, and I would probably even then go back and replay it. And I will play Psychonauts 2. I think I'm excited for it. But I think all in all, I think this game rests at like a solid, like an 82 for me.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see a remaster of this game. If you were going to see a remaster, you would have seen it now.
Yeah, before Psychonauts 2. And that makes sense.
Exactly. So if you were going to get people excited for Psychonauts 2, because obviously that's coming right around the corner here. So, with that coming, you would have seen that already. So this is what you got. I can see why people might have listed this as their favorite game. I can totally get that. And I could see why in 2006, if I had played this game and wasn't playing Call of Duty 4, maybe, back then, and that being the only game I was obsessively playing, I probably would have enjoyed this game too. But playing it now, I think it holds up. It's a very good game. If you're an achievement hunter, obviously this sucks and it's going to be awful for you. But if you're open to just playing a game that's moderately challenging, but with a good story, good voice acting, and just a lot of character and charm, this is going to be right up your alley. Yeah. So I have to attach a number to this?
Yeah.
That's what we do every week.
I'm going to say...
You're looking pain.
I'm going to say an 86.
Ooh.
Right.
I think that's
86.24.
This is where our scores, even no matter who is on this, it never makes sense. I feel like you dragged this game, not way more than me, but you seemed way less excited than I did, but you've got the higher score. And maybe it's just me. I think I just don't know how to score games.
I can't picture me going back to an original Xbox game and enjoying it as much as I would on this one. And a lot of my gripes are, again, probably just what was attached to games at the time. Because the collectible thing isn't a bad thing. It's not bad that there's collectibles.
Because you can skip them, really.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't have to touch a single collectible in this game, and I can do just fine going through it. So it's not like it was a hindrance on my experience. It wasn't. It was just kind of a silly thing to put in the game the way that they did it. So to me, I feel comfortable keeping it at that score.
I respect that.
Yeah, you kind of have to measure it to its time. I'm not measuring it to what I'm playing nowadays because it lacks some of that refinement, but it's still great.
Oh my gosh, I'm seeing a trailer and I forgot about this level where you actually play a tabletop game and you actually throw pieces and move pieces. That was a fun level. For me, like I said at the beginning, I loved Psychonauts. This was one of my original favorite games. I thought this game was a blast, and I think it still holds up really well. The storytelling is great. Voice acting is great. The gameplay is fun. I love the environments. The game isn't very long either. You're looking at about 12 and a half hours, so not terribly long. I mean, if you're not like Keith, you can ignore collectibles. Yeah, you could probably breeze through this game a bit quicker. But yeah, for me, Psychonauts is just a lot of fun. I love the characters, and I loved what this game was doing. It was very unique. It still holds up to today, which I love, and I cannot wait for Psychonauts 2. I think the story, I can't wait to see what they go with the story. For me, I think we give it a 93. I think it's just a lot of fun. You should definitely check it out. As far as Metacritic goes, I didn't write any reviews. That's normally Liz's job, and unfortunately, she's not here today. She decided to take a break. For Metacritic score for critics, it's at an 87, and for users, it's an 8.8.
Which, might I mention, was right around my score. So looks like I'm finely tuned and most accurate. So just noting that. That's all. Just for the record.
I'll get you a cookie.
Thank you.
So yeah, if you're at all interested in Psychonauts 2, I think you should check out 1, because I don't know how the story is obviously in 2 because it's not out. You may be lost with the story, but I have a feeling they're going to do a good job tying it in or keeping it its own game. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for us this week. If you have any game suggestions, please write us an email at gamepassgrabback@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook at the same name. I've been your Hardcore Gamer host, Andrew. You can find me at Xbox Live at Firebird at 0952. Aaron, where can people find you?
I mean, really at this point, Real Movie Talk Podcast, just check us out. Wherever you get your podcast, we're all over the place now. We've been doing this for 187 episodes.
Close.
So way more than this one. This is a baby podcast compared to mine. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
We're so honored to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, you say that you're way ahead of us,
Or you're
Aaron.
welcome. You're welcome. I mean,
But honestly, I mean, the amount of vacation weeks that you guys take, and 3 weeks off here, 2 weeks there, Chaz is gone. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Chaz is having a baby.
Yeah,
Yes.
going and having babies. Get out of here with that. But yeah, I think we'll just catch up to you. But that said, you can find me here. This is it. I mean, I'm on Xbox Live too, but I don't know. I just do my own.
People can
thing.
find you at your home too. Do you want to give your address?
Oh yeah.
do that right now. Do it. Let 'em know.
My address is in a
You're
town.
making that up.
Don't,
You're
some
making
people
that
might
up.
Actually, you
Maybe
didn't
you
give it
better
a fake
beep all
address.
of that out. I want you to blur all of that out.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you again next week.
Bye.
See you.